Our topic for this presentation is Scandinavian prisons. And this is a presentation by Sophie Hanners, Mandy Tan, Andrea Villarreal, and Johnny Mujica. Scandinavia is composed of Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. And comparing the type of prison life that we're familiar with, Scandinavia has a completely different approach. Through history, the penal system has experienced many changes, and during the 19th century, the system was mainly focused on the idea of separated prisons, meaning that they would give one cell per inmate. However, this quickly changed when the ideas of the Lutheran religion were introduced. They believed that all individuals are sinners, and that crime was thought as simply one of the multitudes of earth's sins. This meant that no rigid division should be made between criminals and the rest of the community. This religious belief became widespread, allowing for the first reference of a more open prison concept, and this also led to the creation of the first prison farm and colonies. These ideals also allowed for the prison to improve, and unfortunately for the beginnings of inmates escaping issues. So one of the most important moments in prison reforms includes the inclusion of the inmate's perspective to create positive changes in prison's life. This was possible through the organization CRUM, and this allowed for the prisoners to get a voice when it came to prison change. This reform continued when the Scandinavian culture modernized the ideas of the Lutheran Church, where now they believed that prisoners should be understood as rational rather than deficit citizens. And this new form of thinking allowed the prisoners to receive the same rights of citizenship as those who were not incarcerated. And in 1979, the Swedish Prison Administration decree stated that prisons conditions in penal institutions have to rearrange in a way that they resemble the common living conditions in society. And this allowed for the principle of normality to come to life, and many open prisons started to emerge after that. This reformation allowed for a growth in design that is illustrated in the transformation of the prison system across Scandinavia. These examples showcase an evolution from the separate prison systems that were used in the 19th century to the normality principle that is practiced now. Landholmer Prison is a perfect example of what stood before this normality principle in design. It was constructed in Norway in the 1880s, and it is located on a small island in Stockholm. This prison was created with inspiration from the Philadelphia separate system ideology, in which they keep their prisoners in solitary confinement. And this prison even became the largest, holding approximately 500 cells. This jail finally closed in 1975, and now the island has become a park that it still houses the old prison buildings, but it has been refurbished into a museum and a hotel. And this prison also happens to be the location of the country's last execution prior to the abolition of capital punishment. This type of prison created an influence on later architects to not adopt this design, as this type of prison later got shaped into what we now know as the open prisons. The second example is the state prison of Krakow-Hyry that started in 1930 as a place of voluntary measure for the young people that were unemployed. And this lasted until the Germans occupied it during World War II in 1943. Their occupation saw that this prison transformed into a center that occupied troop transport, equipment storage, and holding of war prisoners. And during 1945, as the war came to an end, this camp was taken over by the Danish prison system, and it was later used to hold the traitors of Denmark. And finally, in 1947, the camp had no more prisoners that were related to the war, and it went into redesign to later open in 1948 as an open prison that housed criminals. The building was outfitted for a capacity of 211 prisoners, and it was given two treatment and rehabilitation departments. They also included work for the prisoners that includes Bastoy. The third example that we have is Horsrud State Prison. This prison is located in Horsrud, Denmark, and it is the second largest open prison in Denmark, with a capacity for 221 men and women. The original building of this prison was designed as a prison camp in 1917, and one was able to find approximately 75 wooden barracks, and this was where they would confine the Russian prisoners of war who were being transferred from Germany in the Eastern Front during the First World War. And then later, after the war ended, a part of the camp was being used to house refugees, to the point that it later transformed into a camp for the sick and minority children of the area. And then the other part of the camp was being used as a summer camp for the Copenhagen School of Children. Later, in 1945, the camp was used to hold Danish traders who had collaborated with the Nazis. And later, the Danish prison services took over the camp in 1947 to make it a state prison. And now, since 2002, there's a small prison museum across the main entrance of this prison as well. The fourth example that we have is Bastøy Prison. This prison is located in the Bastøy Island of Oslofjord Fjord. And within this island, the prison uses the majority of it, minus the northern part, which houses a beach that is open for the public. And before Bastøy Prison opened, it was a juvenile detention center for the Bastøy Boys' Home. In 1915, the site witnessed a rebellion by the boys, and this rebellion was suppressed by the Norwegian military. Bastøy Prison. This prison is located in the Bastøy Island of Oslofjord Fjord. And within this island, the prison uses the majority of it, minus the northern part, which houses a beach that is open for the public. And before Bastøy Prison opened, it was a juvenile detention center for the Bastøy Boys' Home. In 1915, the site witnessed a rebellion by the boys, and this rebellion was suppressed by the Norwegian military. And in 1935, the Norwegian government took over the boys' home and shut it down in 1970. Later in 2007, the Norwegian Penitentiary Administration decided to establish on the island a minimum security prison for common criminals with the state-of-the-art rehabilitation treatments. And these treatments were based upon fostering responsibility in the inmates. And although there has not been a specific building nor an architect that has taken inspiration for this prison, New Zealand has taken some inspiration and has been trying to make their prisons become centralized on openness and personal growth and ecology, with the common aim of not overly punishing the inmates but to focus on the rehabilitated needs of the prisoners. The last and most modern example that we have is Halden Prison. Halden is located in Halden, Norway, and its design and construction began in 2002 with its opening date in 2010. Halden happens to be Norway's newest and largest prison. It holds approximately 250 prisoners, and it is known as the world's most humane prison. And the reason for this construction was a lack of prison capacity in Norway, as well as the fact that many prisons were old and they did not fit the new ideology. Now, Halden Prison has become a representation of a new way of designing and operating prison, as its focus is set on facilitating an existence free from criminality following release. And within this prison, they believe that building relationships between the inmates and employees is an important part of both the rehabilitation process as well as ensuring security. And with many prisons in Norway now banning bar cells, they're leaning to a more open style within their cells. And at this maximum security prison, each prisoner has what they call their little dorm, where they have their own personal shower, toilet, fridge, and even a flat TV. And the prisoners also have access to the kitchens and common areas within the prison. Norway's prison system ensures that it provides a multitude of programs and courses that one is also able to find in a traditional recreation center. And Halden allows its prisoners to enroll in programs such as yoga, craft, woodworking, and even music studios. And these programs allow that within the jail, one is able to find a peaceful atmosphere rather than a place that is full of hatred and violence. And Norwegian jails also highlight the importance of education, as its primary goal is to encourage prisoners to not simply survive, but to live a full life, even if it is inside of a prison. And in Halden, they also believe in the principle of normality, just like the other prisons that we have talked about today. And they want to make life inside as simple and as similar as possible to the life they had outside, as much as they can without compromising security. And when Halden opened, it attracted attention globally for its design. And we're even beginning to see how these prison models have begun to make an influence in other places. The experimentation of this style of prison has started in parts of the United States, and we hope to see this transformation across the world soon.